Hey, what's going on, everybody? Robert Marzullo here with Ram Studio Comics, bringing you yet another video. This one is an information video on Manga Studio. Although I've got a page open here from Blackstone Eternal, I want to show you some of the features in Manga Studio that make it really nice for working on your comic. One thing that I absolutely adore about this software is the ability, if you see over here, I've got all these pages. Um, you know, my cover, which actually this isn't going to be the cover now. I'm changing this, but my opening cover letter page, which I have yet to fill in, and then the sequential art pages. I kind of pencil them, then go back and ink them, and it keeps them all together in a unified document. The way that you do that is create a new story. So you go File, New, and in here, multiple pages. You can set up all your information as far as, is it a top, left, left to right, your binding. I kind of just left all this, traditional, but you can fill all that in and get it, how many pages in your book, in my case, 24. Things like that. So you can plug all that information in and it's going to create this document for you. I go with 11 by 17 at 600 DPI. And then also you can also plug in your margins. And what I did is I set my margins by grabbing a template that you can download online. Just kind of Google standard comic book templates, and then I'm just kind of visually built my margins over top of that. And you can see I'm kind of off here in my layout. Like a lot of this is going to get cropped off, but I try to make sure that none of the pertinent information is going to get cropped off in the design. So let me kind of zoom in there and show you what I'm talking about here. You see like this one, this panel could probably go up and maybe come to this line here to fit that page a little more proper. But I kind of freestyle my pages a bit. I don't worry too much about uh, traditional, layouts, I guess. Especially because it's my own independent book, I try to give it my own flair. So, although right here where his head's going to get chopped off here and the ear there, you're still going to get all the main information of the facial feature and stuff like that. So sometimes it's fun to draw off the edges of the pages, which you'll see I'll do that a lot. So at any rate, I kind of save all this stuff as separate layers, and I'll show you that. And I get a little bit clumsy here with my layers. I start off and I try to draw, my roughs, panel 1, panel 2, this is one, two, three, 4 panels, and I'll rough and I'll usually separate each panel. But then I start bouncing around and, I'm ADD, and next thing you know, I'm scribbling on the back of the notebook or whatever, and I'm moving all around, and I end up with all these different layers. But, you know, I look at it like this: more is better than less. I can always kind of find what I did here. Like actually right there. See how that little, you see that bracelet, not bracelet, shackle, I guess, is on its own layer. The reason being is I copied this one, moved it over, and you can probably see that in the, I show a video where I actually draw this page, a speed drawing, so you can check that out. But sometimes it's easier to grab something, maneuver it, change its size, and copy it, and that's where these layers come in, to where it's easy enough to do that. It's easy enough to add something and maneuver it around. And you can also clean this up a lot by, well, for one, naming them better than I have here. But then also you can create groups. So to create a new layer, you would go to New Raster Layer, like that, name it. Why didn't I pop up here? Oh, sorry, it's just popping up. And you could double click it here, name it, added pencils or something like that. And then, do some stuff that on this layer that you may otherwise, been afraid to do to this drawing. Say, you see from here to here, the minion's like wearing more armor or whatever. Here, I was just kind of doing more of a highlight and a shadow, and he's in the background, so you don't really see what he's wearing. But if I wanted to say, well, for one, pick the right color. Uh, if I wanted to add like that bit of armor to him in this shot, I can do this real quick and see if it looks good on that separate layer. And if I don't like it, I can easily erase and maneuver out of it. So That's where layers are just extremely beneficial to the drawing process. You can just do all kinds of neat stuff with them. Now, another thing that I'll make sure that I touch on with this video in Manga Studio is the point and shift feature. Sorry, it sounded bad. Point and shift feature. So you basically click on a spot, hold shift like that, and then click again, and you get a nice straight line, right? Well, the reason why that's so powerful, it sucks in this one. I can't show you a whole lot, but I guess I can come over here and show you this little part. I can easily trace around an object holding that shift feature and get some nice, you know, some nice lines real quick. And instead of trying to draw those in, you can even do that with your panels. Say you do that on a separate layer, you get that nice straight line. You erase parts of it out of the way that you don't need. So that it comes in really handy in a lot of aspects. Now, and I'll even use that as for some of my perspective drawing. So, say I want to, and this software has fantastic perspective rulers, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit also. But I want to show you how. Let me add one more layer, and I'm going to call this perspective guides, just like that. And I'm going to change this to a nice light blue. If I can get that to open up, there we go. Grab my pencil and say, for instance, this perspective that I kind of did this thing where the scene was coming perspectively out like this, right? Unfortunately, this isn't. I wanted to make Krim's layer. That's the villain here in the Blackstone comic. I wanted to make his layer look really monstrous and kind of caveman-esque, animalistic. That's why they're kind of wearing this shag effect, even though they're a futuristic society with all kinds of techie stuff. They still live kind of barbaric in this caveman mentality thing. So at any rate, if I was drawing something more techie, these lines would be perfect for this, and that's what I want to show you. So just by filling something in like this and creating a quick perspective grid by holding the shift key, designating my 1 point perspective off the panel, and then drawing these in real fast, I can come up with a series of guidelines really fast and begin to draw over top of them. And I'll show you, like if I take, say this is my vertical lines here. And there's a reason why sometimes I like to do it this way, other times I like to use the perspective rulers that are in Manga Studio. There's applications for both, and I'll show you that here in a sec. So right there I start to give myself a bit of a kind of 3D grid space to work with and visualize, the scene. So something like that. Just real fast. Okay, so now if I drop something like that in there and I'm wanting to draw some cool gadgetry or whatever, it's real easy to grab, let's say another color here. See if you can see this on there. Yeah, black. And actually what I'll do is I'll turn some of these other layers to a blue line so that we can see I'll turn them off first. Let me try that. So I'll take some of these off. Sorry, my layers are a mess here. If you think that's a mess, you should see my studio. Okay, so right there, and I'm working off the perspective grid. And actually I'll add one more layer. We'll draw on that one. Okay, so for instance, I added that quick little perspective grid, and say I want to get in here and draw some techie stuff. It's a lot easier now because I've got these initial grids to start with. And the one thing that's nice about doing it this way is that my lines aren't snapping to the perspective rulers. I don't know what I'm drawing here, like some futuristic jukebox or something. But so I can kind of freehand draw it in. And I would actually recommend probably starting off the scene this way. Get a feel for what you want this scene to look like. Like right now I'm kind of struggling. I don't know what I'm trying to make it look like, but I'll just kind of keep drawing this stuff in until something starts to click and pop, and figure out what I want to do here. Um, but because I have those perspective lines, I can kind of draw stuff in relatively easy and mess around really fast, knowing that these lines aren't perfect because I'm kind of just loosely drawing them in, but they're they have a basis because I did that initial sketch line. So say for instance, this is what I wanted, even though it's pretty ugly at this point. Um, yeah. Anyways, I probably should have thought this one out better. But all right, whatever. Here's my futuristic fireplace jukebox. Okay, so but you get the idea that you could have just sketched in something a lot better than that with perspective rulers. So now that I've got my loose sketch of that, again, I could probably turn that to a blue line so that I consider this just a very rough fill-in. And you can still overlay this a couple times and come back with that shift technique I told you about and clean it up immensely with a few layers. But the other thing that you can do now with Manga Studio is just go layer, ruler, create perspective ruler. Uh, it gives you an option of 1, 2, or 3 point. This is 1 point, just like you seen that I created that series of lines with. So 1 point perspective, hit OK, and it's going to give you these handy dandy little guides here. You just start pulling those where you need them. You've got this middle line that allow you to control it interactively and place it where you want. These I think moves the initial guide. So if you want to kind of bend the rest into place, so what I usually do is I'll put the start point where I want it, and then I'll just kind of move these other ones based on the little circle here to go with these other lines, just like that. And now the rest of the lines are going to fall, to that perspective. So create myself another layer, which I believe that'll still work off that one. I did it. Yeah. So okay, so I've got another layer. It's working off that perspective grid, and now I can come in and grab just the lines that I want. Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, it helps to have it above the other layer so you can see what you're doing. There we go. The eraser still works. In the last version, the eraser would snap to the perspective ruler, and I think this one defaults where it doesn't, and that's a great help because sometimes the lines will snap to the perspective when you don't want them to. So it's good to be able to just grab the eraser and fix that, or Control Z your way out of it, whatever. But the beauty of this now is that I can real quick just grab some of this line work that I want to keep. It'll give me the up and down, which is the line over here, your vertical line, and it'll also give me the perspective lines that I wanted, just real fast. You sometimes have to kind of go back through a couple times just to get it right. And then you can still use your click, hold shift, bring it over, get that line, click, hold shift, bring it over, get that line. Your up and down will work with the ruler, and you kind of just start building like that. Oh, see, and even right there I could have just perspectively drew that. But sometimes, once you start getting all these lines in place, you'll just kind of go to that shift hold effect, at least I do anyways, and I seem to move a little bit faster with that after I've got my initial line work to start with. So I'll get a few of these perspective lines in here to go off of. Keep in mind they don't have to be perfect because you can go back and erase some and clean it up with the shift tool and the eraser. Oops, see? And I tried doing the perspective line there, but I got to hold shift, get that line. Alright, so now, see right here, I want a little bit over, I can just easily erase that line, no problem. Hold shift. Okay, so just like that, and you can start filling this in and getting, getting what you want out of the scene. So now the other thing to remember is that you could take that perspective guide off once you feel comfortable with that, or I usually take that layer and start turning the opacity down. And what that'll do is that'll expose the areas that I may still need to fill in some detail, but it'll still give me my guides. And I basically just blend that out as I start to add more detail and get the scene the way that I want. And forgive me because this scene is absolutely ugly, but I'm trying to hopefully convey the information that it'll take to do your own scenes with this effect. And keep in mind you can turn these rollers on and off because sometimes the snap to grid or snap to ruler does get a little bit overbearing. And that's actually why I wanted to first show you that effect with the shift key and drawing your own guides, because if you just kind of come out and start drawing a cityscape, in my opinion, it gets a little bit, I don't know, a little bit, it doesn't feel as natural. So this way gives you a more natural way to execute that. So let me go ahead and take these off and get back to the actual penciling and see how these layers start to pop in and fill in the details. See, and I even like to leave some of my blue line sketch layers in right up until the point of inking. And the reason being is that I always feel like if I leave a few more of those layers in and just tone them down, I'm going to get a little bit better. I can pick parts that I want to keep and parts that I want to get rid of as I'm inking. So now let's see, and I should probably condense all this down, but I'm kind of scared to right up until the end. So now I go through and I start grabbing all these pencil layers, and I believe you can actually even hold shift, or let's try control. Control will allow you to grab each layer individually and unselect it or unselect it. See that? So shift will grab from point in between point all the layers like that, and that's pretty standard with, like, say, Photoshop and Manga Studio here, and most all of them I think work in that respect. So at any rate, let me try this. I'm going to grab each one of the pencil layers and hit blue, and nope, it just worked on the one that I was on last. So you got to click each one of them separate or combine the layers first, then hit your blue line. Okay, so then I'll get all of them kind of like that. Usually I'll tone them down a bit, but I can ink over that too. Create a new layer, and I'll call this inks. And one of the things I like most about Manga Studio is the inking is just fantastic. So even though I have been finding myself dinking around more with traditional methods again, but seeing my ruler still on, I gotta take that off. But the inking is just very intuitive. It works great, and there's one thing to be said about digital inking is the ability to erase, the ability to work with white ink or whatever just as quickly as you can with the black lines. That's pretty powerful, and you don't have to clean up your brushes or your crow quills at the end of it. That's pretty neat too. So, and believe me, I'm not trying to bash traditional methods, because there's one thing you don't get with digital, and that's original art at the end. So there's definitely pros and cons of each, but the way they made these brushes work inside Manga Studio, these lines just kind of flow out. You get your brush settings just right, and they work really well. I'm a big fan of it. So, and let me make sure I got the right brush here. Another thing to take note of with Manga Studio are these rollouts. Very handy dandy. So, I just kind of set up, and forgive me, I got to kind of look through these because I traditionally use everything on an opposite screen. So I'm not seeing where my rollout is, and I believe it's on the other screen still. Yep, here it is. And just so you know how these rollouts work, you can click and drag and bring them anywhere you want, and as soon as it lights up red, that's where you can drop it. So if you bring it over to here, lights up red, drop it in there, and now it rolls out like a drawer basically. And see, my opacity was too far down. Must have been doing some digital painting. So take that G pen and bring the opacity all the way up, and you just get a really nice line with it. Very fluid, very good feel. Um, it's easy to get a nice thick and thin. And if you're not getting the thick to thin line that you want, and you feel that it's you're struggling to do it, you could have settings wrong. So just get in there and check out those settings, both with the Wacom tablet utilities and Manga Studio. But I'll tell you, Manga Studio right out of the box works great. So it could be just in the Wacom settings as far as your levels of or your sensitivity to your Wacom. If you're using a Wacom tablet, if you're using something else, check the settings in that. I can't really vouch for other tablets because I've only used Wacom tablets since I've been in the game. So see how nice and easy those lines come out. They just kind of flow out like butter. Okay, so we've talked about the rollouts. I don't know much about the other pens, I'll be honest, or creating custom pens at this point. I just really stick with this G pen. I've been meaning to use more of this mapping pen because it reminds me of a crow quill, but to me it kind of gives me the same effect. Let me see if I can get something different out of it. Yeah, I don't feel much difference from this to the I guess right there I did. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's going to be more with the tilt. I don't think I have tilt enabled on mine. My main thing is I just like being able to push down and get a thicker line and let off and get a thinner line. That's, to me that's more like a brush, and that's usually what I lean more towards when I'm inking my work anyways. So, and I do a lot of line feathering, which is just, pulling the same line and then feathering it out to a point and getting the shape that you want out of the line. The only thing I don't like, it's not that I don't like it, but it's kind of a pain. Say I fill in this area right here, so I block off this area. I grab my paint bucket tool and drop it in. So I get little specks of white around the edges. And I got to figure out how to get my settings right. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not a huge loss of time. I just kind of go in there and start filling that back in. But I don't know. It really shouldn't do that. And I think that if I worked with vectors, it wouldn't. But I traditionally don't mess with the vector layers because you can't output in vector. So to me, it's kind of, I don't really see the point unless it does clean up effects like, well, what I'm talking about right there. Then I guess that would be that. But I just, I take the time and just fill it in and move on. So now the other good thing is when you're inking with this and you're doing your layers and you're kind of flowing through and doing your line work like this, um, the thing I want to get back at with what's nice about digital inks is, say right here I want to do an effect where, let's see, I'll fill in a little line like this, like that, and then say I want like a little white line to go through these to bring it out another way, or you can hit clear here. This little clear bar over here will just do a little takeaway. So I'll just go above this line and I'll just kind of go through there, and it makes that little separation and changes up the line work just a little bit, which is a good effect for, like, say, like his veins right there. So say I grab the black here, I shadow at the bottom of the vein like this, and the muscle, usually you want to take where the muscle intersects with the vein and do a little bit more shadow. Some line work. Sorry, trying to hurry up and get there so I can explain what I was trying to show you with that. And basically what it is what I was trying to get at is, like, when you fill in all this detail, shadowing, line work, and all this, and say this vein gets lost, but it's not really getting lost the way that I'm drawing it right here. You can easily come back with this and kind of drop in that clear line again for the vein. That's really what I was getting at. So I guess right here is where it would work. Let me draw in this shape, and this is generally called spot in the black or whatever. So say I'm spotting the black right here on this part of the arm. Fill that in. Fill in the little spots there. And I'd probably do the line work first. Okay, so now if I wanted the vein to go through this and to highlight, I'd grab that transparent and then just kind of draw back into it. You know, and if you've ever done any traditional inking, you immediately see the value in this part, because you got to grab out white pro white ink, or what is that? I think it's an ink. But anyways, you got to grab that, grab a brush, dirty up a brush, and go through all this at the end. Which, don't get me wrong, it's very cool to do that at the end of your piece. It looks really neat, makes the piece jump out and pop. But it's just so much faster with this setup to do that way. So that's why I wanted to show you that real fast. And what else? It's got this cool interactive zoom. I kind of dig that. Like if you're trying to move real fast, you click, pull to the left, it pulls out, and then say I want to come over here, I just click here, pull to the right, and it zooms into that portion of the drawing. So you can kind of move around the drawing really fast without using anything else. That was a huge time saver that they added to this. I thought it was great. Yeah, well, I guess I don't want this thing to be too lengthy. It's going to take time to cover this software because there's just so many cool aspects of what it can do. Um, Another thing is, if you hit R on your keyboard, you can rotate the page. I'm pretty sure most people know that by now, and that's probably why you got the software. A lot of softwares didn't have that at first. Now they're pretty much all going to it. But Manga Studio had it almost immediately, for what I saw. H is hand, so that's another quick shortcut. Uh, let's see, H, rotate, and I think pencil is your pencil tool, and then if you keep hitting it, you'll kind of cycle through them. Pencil and pen, anyways. Yeah. Sorry, folks, I'm running out. I know there's just tons of things to cover here, but what will help me to give you the things that you're looking for is leave comments in there and let me know. Say, hey, Rob, you totally missed talking about this, and why did you do that? What's up? But if you give me ideas, I can respond to that, and I can give you what you're looking for. I'm going to do a series of videos with Manga Studio, just because I really do feel it's one of the better softwares out there, especially for comic book illustration. You can even digitally paint really well in this software. And for inking, it's like, I don't even think there's any competition there. I mean, I'm not going to badmouth any of the other softwares. I try not to do that, but they're all great for various things. But as far as inking goes, this thing is like just spot on. So hopefully this has been somewhat helpful for you. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, please. That helps me get the word out there to people, and I'm really trying to grow this channel. So let me know where I'm doing well, and I'll continue to try to do well in that area. And let me know where I'm not doing so well, and I'll try to make that better for you. So this is another page to the Blackstone Eternal comic, which you can find on Indie Planet, produced by yours truly. And thanks very much for watching. Keep drawing and keep having fun. Take care. Bye-bye.